delighted to say we're going to stick with the GAA, and former Kerry footballer Louise Galvin joins us on the line now. Morning to you, Louise.
Morning, Adrian. How's things?
All good, thank you. Plenty to chat about here. We'll start with the game in Tralee tomorrow afternoon. No neutral venue available for this one, and Kerry win the toss. Everything points to Cork, though, about this one, does it?
I wouldn't necessarily say so. Obviously, Cork have actually named their team. Cork have come out of the blocks, both the men and the women, and named their team, whereas we have no teams from Kerry yet. But they have named a very, very strong team. They've the Sullivan sisters back, who are a formidable duo inside that inside forward line. But Kerry had the advantage of having that game under their belt last weekend, whereas, you know, in the ladies, they didn't finish off the league fixtures. They called, the Ladies Association called them off. So Cork haven't had a competitive game outside of the county in a matter of months. So we're not 100% sure, or maybe they're not 100% sure how they're going themselves at the moment. So I think Kerry have a slight advantage there in terms of having that game against Cavan, and as well having the home advantage. Like, I know we say home advantage, there's no crowds or anything like that, but even the way the travel is set up, I know Cork don't have to come far, but you're getting into that car on your own, you're driving over the border. I just think it's nice to know you're playing inside your own county grounds.
Yeah, we were trying to get a bit of a sense earlier in the show just in relation to exactly where this Cork team are at. Like, you know, in terms of even looking at last year almost as a benchmark, they were as close outside of the final, and it's hard to read too much into the final last year, but against Galway they were as close as anybody really got to near Dublin. Is it just a case that they're not as good as the teams that have gone before in some ways, and they're building things up again? Or what's your sense overall in terms of where this Cork team are at?
Oh, they're still a very strong team. I mean, there's incredible footballers there, a nice mix of multi All-Ireland winning players and kind of youth coming through. Look, I think that Cork team back in that won the 5 in a row, 9 in 10 years, whatever it was in the end, they were an incredible team, and they were kind of the start of a real change in ladies Gaelic football as well. Whereas I think a lot of the other teams have cut up, the likes of Dublin especially, and we've seen the West, Mayo and Galway as well. And it's gotten a lot more competitive. I certainly know, like the Cork of old, we might have caught them a little bit in Munster in the round robin, or even maybe in a Munster final, but they always came good come the All-Ireland series. But, you know, the way the Dubs have been going, they've just become their almost their bogey team. They've switched things around a little bit, and I think that's more of a sign of Dublin's strength than Cork getting any weaker, if you know what I mean. So it's still a very, very strong team. I think obviously they had a transition. Aoife came in. He's doing a good job with them. But look, this is still a very strong Cork team. What I think is good for Kerry is, like I said, getting out of the blocks and having that home advantage. And as well, just knowing that it's not like we've never beaten Cork. We have. It just tends to be back when there's a round robin or a backdoor fixture. Now, this is knockout football, essentially. I know Cork have to play Cavan as well, but the winner of this game, you can take it as going into an All-Ireland semi-final. So Cork will know that, obviously, coming down to Tralee, they're not going to be taking their foot off the gas and thinking it's a round-robin game in May or June. So they're going to be bringing their A game, and they've shown that with their selection. Now, interestingly, they don't have Emma Spillane or Emer Scally, two very strong footballers who don't seem to join the panel at all this year. Could have been their own personal reasons, but they still have such a strong back line, and particularly that forward line. I think a huge thing is going to be how the Kerry backs cope with the Cork forward line, and some of that might be just cutting off the supply and Kerry trying to dominate that game themselves and keep the ball going down the other end.
Have you seen incremental improvements from Kerry over the last couple of years, Louise, to suggest that they are going in the right direction, that they will be able to mount an All-Ireland challenge in the near future?
Yeah, I definitely have. I think Declan Quill and Dara Long have been really great additions to that management squad, and even the background squad of Amad, Maria Dunhu, Cassandra Buckley and Geraldine O'Shea. They've all played with Kerry. They are people that they have good background, like Cass with her SNC background, and the fact that they've played means that they care so much. I know back in my time we had Mary Jo coming in to help us as well, Nora Halsey, and that was great help. So I think the management is better. I think they're getting better support from the county board now. Like anything, we saw the expenses last year. It's only going so far. People are still very much out last week, I should say. People are still very much out of pocket. But they still have a good blend of experience and youth coming through as well. I was impressed last weekend, in particular, with the pace of the game. I thought any time that ball went out of play, someone was getting on as quick as possible. So definitely they're in pretty good condition considering I think they even had to take a break with COVID for 2 weeks maybe while preparing for these round robin games. So I've definitely seen an improvement. It's just to get over the line of getting, like previously, it's getting beyond that All-Ireland quarter-final stage. But that's why this year it's huge. This game gives them an All-Ireland semi-final ticket. It's massive.
Yeah, enough in a word for Kerry to get it done, do you think, Louise, or what are you thinking?
Look, it's going to be very difficult. Cork are going to be fully aware that this is leading directly to there's no back door this year. But I do think more than other years, I do think if Kerry can keep the ball going down towards their own forwards who are in good form, I mean, between Louise Mahertig and Shifa O'Shea, who's another young, strong player, they scored, I think, 4-6 between them last weekend. And they can keep the game pretty tight, you know, going into that third quarter, coming out of maybe that third water or out of the last water break. I think it'll be thereabouts. But if Cork do get a run, it will be hard to hold them back because, you know, they've such eye for goal and they've such experience as well that, you know, on the balance, you would have to say Cork based on their experience. But I certainly think it's going to be a lot tighter than other people are thinking.
Okay, there might be a similar conversation about the game over in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Sunday, but I was listening to our Cork Kerry roadshow. We heard a clip of it there in the ad break during the week. There was a lot of chat about how Cork can raise their game and they're playing the old neighbour. Peter Keane had been talking during the week as well. I saw that there's never much between these teams, which was true maybe in the 2019 final, but 1-14 between them in 2018, 1-8 between them in 2017. And is it again only a matter of how much in 2020, or are you giving Cork a shake of this?
Look, you'd always have to respect them. Again, the same thing applies. It's winner takes all, which adds a huge, I suppose, carrot there for Cork. If they can knock Kerry off their perch, they'll want nothing more, and they can nearly retire and not even turn up for a Munster final. Look, last year, obviously Kerry were comfortable and then let Cork played their way back into the game and it was very tight in the end. That might come against them because Peter Keane you can be well sure will have his troops well warned that if they get their nose ahead, they're going to push on and not let them back into the game. I think even looking at the Cork team, they're missing a lot of backs, but what they have in there is they're after bringing in a lot of the under 20 players, and those guys, they're used to beating Kerry. They're all Ireland champions. They're used to winning. So if they can keep it kind of tight, like we don't know what it's going to be like on Sunday yet weather-wise. If they can keep it tight and they're stuck in the game, again, we're looking at this, it's almost like American sports at this stage. I know I'm used to playing basketball, but the water breaks nearly adding an extra quarter. If they are still within the third quarter, they're certainly going to be pushing on. They're going to be playing back in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and they're going to be drawing in everything within themselves to try and almost knock Kerry out of the championship rather than advance themselves, might be their motivation more than anything else. But on the balance of things, I mean, Kerry have come out, they've been very professional in their first 2 league games, or their last 2 league games, I should say, really. But we now know Monaghan aren't exactly where we thought they were. And Donegal, we know, turned up with, half a squad with more of an eye on the Tyrone battle last weekend. So it didn't really tell us a whole pile. It tells us Kerry are motoring well. They're trying to settle, trying to get a settled 15. But on the balance of things, you do expect Kerry to win. And I'd imagine Peter Keane is saying, look, when we get our noses ahead, we don't take our foot off the gas.
Full forward line for Cork on Sunday is Mark Collins, Brian Hurley and Luke Connolly. The full back line for Kerry is probably going to be Jason Foley, Tyg Borley and Tom O'Sullivan. On paper, that might look like a matchup that Cork would have the winning of in any of the previous couple of years. I think that's ignoring the fact, though, that defensively Kerry have come on quite a bit in the recent past. How do you expect those particular matchups to go?
Yeah, I think Morley would probably pick up Hurley, but he could pick up Connolly as well because there's a little bit of a height Connolly's a bit of a bigger player, but then Jason Foley's got a big guy as well. I imagine Mark Collins might have more of the legs for Tom Sullivan if Tom does decide to drive forward. Not really sure what Cork are going to do there, but I would imagine Mark Collins and Tom Sullivan would be a natural fit together because again, size-wise, they're both players are more likely to drift out around the middle, but I would imagine Luke Connolly and Brian Hurley are going to stay inside more, as would Jason Foley and Tadhg Morley. But I think going a big plus for Kerry this year, I mean, looking not to look beyond the Cork game, but they say anytime you're trying to win All Ireland, you're trying to improve. You want to pick up a player or two every year. Might not necessarily be a new player, but having Peter Crowley back in that back line is huge. I think coming to the end of that drawing All Ireland last year, if Peter Crowley's on the field, you might just had a bit more, I don't know, savvy or experience to maybe hold on to the ball a bit more and not. I think we had something like 7 turnovers in a 5 or 6 minute spell in that injury time and the drawn game. So I think having Peter Crowley back from his ACL injury and the way the championship has been played out later this year, he obviously had a great run with Mid Kerry in the county championship. He's got the 2 league games under his belt. So in terms of Kerry's backline, I think he adds a lot to quite a settled backline otherwise as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, on top of that, having someone like Gavin Crowley being a substitute would have also added to the forces as well, coming in off the bench on that particular occasion. Are you a fan of the fact that, as I say, you could probably guess the Kerry team at this point? There'd probably be 1 or 2 changes depending on, say, Stephen O'Brien and Paul Gainey's fitness. But the team kind of picks itself to a certain degree. It's not something that you could always say with a Peter Keane team. There used to be surprises quite a bit, but it seems that he's fairly set in his ways at the moment, especially numbers 1 to 8. Is that a positive in your view, or do you feel that perhaps it's too much of a closed shop and maybe someone like Paudie Clifford didn't get enough of a crack of a whip over the last 2 games in the league?
Yeah, well, he could throw us a curveball. He could certainly throw us a curveball on yet before the team is named, or before the team lines out, I should say, really, is what we really need to be looking out for. I think it's a good thing, particularly with your backs, to have them settled. Obviously, you want players chomping on the bit on the substitute line, and Kerry more than have that, and they've players who've experienced to come on into that position. Look, we well know, we've been saying with Gaelic football for years how positions themselves, numbers on the back, don't mean a whole pile. It's more nearly like your inside forwards and inside backs, which might only quite often be 2 of each at this stage, and then your middle 8 or 10 players just roaming around the field, picking up whatever position or whatever player that's closest to them at the time. I think it's good. I think also finding a midfield partner for David Moran is quite important, and even not so much a replacement for David, but he's starting to struggle with a little bit of injuries as well. I know he struggled with his knee in the county championship season. So not just someone to partner David, but if he's not available, we know this is going to be a very difficult championship season. We're going to have a lot of games in close proximity to each other. So having Diarmuid O'Connor there, who reminds me nearly of a Johnny Buckley in his prime, another guy who had a lot of knee injuries. You know, he's well able to play in the half forward line, nice silky footballer, but has serious size and engine on him as well, but is probably a bit lighter and more agile than maybe a Jack Barry, who's done very well for Kerry as well over the years. Has had good performances against the likes of Brian Fenton, but they seem to be going with someone like a Diarmuid instead in that half or in that midfielder position. Definitely the half forward line doesn't seem to be as nailed down then. I mean, Sean O'Shea is an absolute cert, and should be for probably another 10 or 15 years. But either side of him, we saw Steve-O came on against Donegal. Not really sure in terms of fitness where some players are. There isn't much coming out of the camp. Ronan Buckley obviously had a good run in the county championship, and he's there as well. And again, because Kerry, who you pick as a half forward, it's quite important to get that balance, because we have seen their half back line are attacking so much. So if you have Gavin White, Paul Murphy flying up the wings, you do need someone who maybe not as a defensive minded half forward, but is very much tuned in to, okay, I need to track back here, as opposed to I need to chip in with 3 points myself. So you mentioned a Paudie Clifford there. Maybe he just doesn't fit into that system at the moment, because he would be a more attack minded half forward, and the inside forward line, Sheeny Mack, I don't know what our stories of Paul Gainey. Doesn't look like James O'Donoghue who is available, but still have David Clifford in there, Darren Moynihan, who probably drift out a little bit more, and then Tony Broston, who last made his first championship appearance, I think in 2016, has been a bit plagued by injuries since. So it's going to be exciting to see how he fares as well, presuming that he does start.
Yeah, definitely. It always seems to me, Louise, like the Cork footballers are like the French rugby team, that they can be absolutely sensational one year and terrible the next. So it's that old adage: which Cork is going to show up on Sunday, and will it be a good enough Cork version to actually win this game?
Yeah, and I think just the whole setup this year that we are going to see the best of Cork. Okay, and I think that, yeah, fair enough, there are missing the likes of James Lockery and Tomas Clancy, particularly in the back line, Kieran Sheen up front. But the whole idea of, and again, I could be wrong, this could be very cocky sentiment, but I know the idea of knocking Kerry out versus just even advancing themselves would be huge carrot. And I believe that because they're sick of listening to their neighbours next door Yerraing around the place. But we wouldn't be doing that at all, I'm sure we wouldn't.
There's been a fair bit of
but I think we're going to see the best of them come in.
Anyway.
I think we're being direct enough. I think that's going to be a huge card for them, and yeah, I just think if they're in it in that third quarter spell, they're going to stick. They're going to dig the heels in. We know there's brilliant footballers in Cork. There's excellent football. If you watch the Cork Club Championship, like it's very entertaining, and streamed a lot this year. But like, they've never been able to, not never, but in recent years, they haven't been able to gel it together enough. I'm not sure, is it a lack of cohesion? I'm not sure what it's been, but again, this year, Ronan McCarthy, look, they've done well. They've been business-like in Division 3. Obviously, they don't want to be playing in Division 3, but that's what they are. They've gotten out of it. They're into Division 2. Keane O'Neill being there is a little extra little coup. He has a bit of an inside scoop on Kerry as well. So that'll be an extra little bit of knowledge for them. But they're going to bring everything, which is what makes this such an exciting game. Because, and look at Ballybuffet last week, if we have a game like that, in terms of weather, it's just going to make everything a little bit more edge of the seat, I believe, anyway.
Yeah. And in a word?
Kerry should win it, but I'm not sure it'll be as close as people, or sorry, as big a win as some people are saying. I think Cork have a lot to show for themselves, and they're really going to put Kerry up to it. But Kerry should come away with the win.
That's the Yerraing there again, Louise. We just have to caveat that every time it comes out. We should sort of issue an on-screen warning. Brilliant stuff. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Louise Galvin on the line there, looking ahead to the two Cork Kerry games this weekend, and plenty to look ahead to, one tomorrow and one on Sunday as well. And we shall see how they go, and plenty of reflections of those again next week as well. It is coming up on 8:30 on this Friday morning. I hope all is well with you wherever it is that you're at. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead.